Well done.
Hey buddy, Crow back again with a look at another Evercade cartridge. This time we're going to be looking at the Interplay Collection 2. And if you don't know what the Evercade is this handheld device right here that takes cartridges such as this Interplay Collection 2 cartridge, which is actually a combination of Interplay and Titus games. So it's not purely Interplay, so to speak, but there are 6 games in here, not a whole lot of games, but are they any good? We're going to take a look at them one at a time. And what I'll normally do is look at each of these games, talk about them for a minute or two, and then give them a rating. And the ratings will be based on a scale from 1 to 5. A 5 being what I consider to be a great game, a game that I, couldn't really be improved anymore, just really fun game. A 4 is what I would consider to be a good game, a game that I still have fun playing, but there's certain tweaks that could have been done here or there that could have improved the game even further. A 3 is what I consider to be an okay game, a game that I really, really don't like, but a game that I really, really don't hate either. I'm just right in the middle on it. A 2 is what I consider to be a poor game, a game that I really kind of don't like, but then again, I could kind of see myself going back to it and maybe, going for a high score or something like that every once in a while, going back to that game. And a 1 is what I would consider to be a bad game, a game that I wouldn't want to play again for any reason whatsoever. So that's the grading scale. Again, that's my own personal opinion. I'm not trying to go for a common public consensus here. Just my own views on these games in Interplay Collection 2. With all that being said, let's get started looking at the first game. The first game is Clay Fighter 2, and it was originally released in 1995, and this is the Super Nintendo version. And if you remember from the Interplay Collection 1, I was kind of in the middle on the original Clay Fighter. So how does this one stack up against that? Well, in some respects, this Clay-themed one-on-one fighter is better, but in some respects, it's not. I think the gameplay's a little bit better. The characters do look a little bit better, but on the flip side, I think some of the backgrounds look terrible. On top of that, most of the characters from the first game are gone, replaced with completely different characters. Yeah, only 3 of the characters are back from the original game, like Bad Mr. Frosty, Tiny, and the Blob, and the replacements are just very bizarre, like a giant baby and a banana. I mean, what happened to like Icky Bod Clay and Taffy? I thought those were really good characters. I don't know why they're not in this game. But ultimately, this kind of just evens out and is kind of the same as the original game, where I neither really like this game nor really hate this game. So I'm going to give this one a 3.
Blob wins the battle.
Game 2 is Claymates. This is the Super Nintendo version released in 1994, and this is actually a pretty good platformer where you start out as a clay ball. I guess you were transformed into a clay ball in the beginning of the game, and as you collect other clay balls, depending on the color, you shapeshift into different animals which give you different abilities, and you basically just traverse the levels collecting diamonds, gems, and other things until you reach the end of the level. And if you collect enough gems, you get to play a bonus level. There's also shapes hidden throughout the levels, and if you can find those shapes, then you can access other blocks within the levels. It's a pretty good game, though it does have its faults. For example, some of the characters do move way too fast, so you really can't see obstacles or enemies that may be in your way. Also, if you do take a hit and get reverted back to the ball, your attack is really, really weak, and it can be very difficult to find another ball to change it to an animal again. But yeah, it's just kind of fun to explore these levels. You're given a very generous time limit, so, kind of explore at your own leisure. And what's also interesting is when you complete a level, these robots get sent out into the overworld, and you kind of have to complete like a little puzzle before you're allowed access to the next area. So that's a little bit different as well. So yeah, I mean, the game takes a little bit getting used to, but I wouldn't say it's a bad game at all. I'm going to give this one a 4. This is good. Game 3 is Earthworm Jim 2, released in 1995. This is the Super Nintendo version, and if you remember from Interplay Collection 1, I really liked the original Earthworm Jim that was on that, and this sequel is no different. It's actually more of the same, but with some improvements here or there. I think now you have the ability to switch weapons if you have multiple weapons, and also you have a backpack booger type thing that you could use as a parachute or a web sling across certain surfaces. But yeah, this is a typical Earthworm Jim game where a lot of it's running and platforming, but there's a lot of different gameplay elements thrown in as well. The only downside to the game is that you could go from one level to the next level doing something completely different, but there's seemingly no transition between these things. You just finish a level, and then the next thing you know, you're saving puppies from Psychro, who's throwing them out of a building. And then you go to a completely other location that's completely random, and then you're back to saving puppies again. There's no rhyme and reason to the order of these levels, it seems like. But you know what? It really doesn't matter, I think. It just kind of adds to the wackiness of the game, I think. I mean, it's not the easiest game in the world either, but it's also a little bit less frustrating, I think, than the original game. But using the save states in the Evercade really helped, though. But yeah, I gotta give this one a 5. It's a great game, no matter how you look at it. Game 4 is Prehistorik Man. It was originally released in 1996 on the Super Nintendo. This is a platforming game where you control a caveman who's out to kind of save his tribe. It seems like all the food in the village was stolen, so instead of going and stealing the food back, apparently the best idea is to collect enough bones to buy more food from the store. I guess that's how it worked in prehistoric times. But regardless, I didn't know what to expect from this game because I hadn't played it. But it turned out I really liked this game. This is a fantastic game where you run around clubbing animals, collecting bones. There's a little bit of puzzle solving involved as well. There's a lot of supporting characters that give you advice throughout the game. Even at one point, there's an inventor caveman guy that gives you a hang glider. So the game doesn't remain like stale or anything. Another interesting thing is the way you run in the game. Sure, you can hold down the attack button and move to run, but you could also hold up and diagonally to run as well. And I thought that would be kind of goofy, but it turned out it was really the best way to control the guy. So yeah, your main attack is a club, but you could also gain other weapons throughout the game. But when they do run out of ammo, you get reverted back to the club. You also have got this shout move that will clear all the enemies on the screen, but needs some time to recharge. This is solid. It really is. I think the only reason we never really heard about this game is because it came out really late in the Super Nintendo lifespan. In fact, the PlayStation had already been out for almost a year, I think, when this game was originally released. And playing this on the Evercade is fantastic, especially with the ability to save states. So yeah, this is getting a 5 for sure. Game 5 is the only 8-bit title in the collection. This is The Adventures of Rad Gravity, originally released in 1990 on the NES. And this is the fourth and final platformer in the cartridge. Yes, out of 6 games, 4 of them are platformers, but that's not bad. This game, however, I wouldn't say it's bad, but it is kind of wonky. You basically pick a planet to go through, and from there, the objectives are pretty unclear to me, but you do select where you want to land. You do unlock different sections of the planet as you traverse the levels, but it is kind of like a giant maze. Rad Gravity himself really doesn't look too bad, but the enemies are kind of really wonky, as it were. You do start with a rather weak sword, laser sword weapon, like a lightsaber, like are they ripping off Star Wars? But you do upgrade to different weapons throughout the game. seems like. I didn't get too far into this game. But yeah, the level structures make it very difficult to tell what's a platform, what's a wall, what you could go through. It's just the kind of game you have to play through trial and error, it seems like. But the more you play, the more you understand it. But yeah, it's just not friendly to begin with, it seems like. It seems like you got to figure a lot of stuff out on your own. But I'm not going to say this is a bad game. At the same time, I'm not going to say this is a good game. This is right in the middle for me. I'm going to say it's an okay game. You're getting a 3. Our sixth and final game on this collection is The Brainies, released in 1996. This is the Super Nintendo version. And what is The Brainies? Well, if you had to guess based on the title, it is a puzzle game. Basically, your only goal in the game is to maneuver each colored Brainie to the specific color spot on the board in order to clear the board. It starts out easy, but it could get more difficult as you move each Brainie. You can only move them in one direction, and they won't stop unless they hit a wall or another obstacle. So there is a strategy element in there where you have to figure out, okay, where can I stop these things? Maybe you stop one at one place so you can provide a blockade for another one in order to hit the specific mark. It's not a bad game at all. The only really big negative this game has is that the time limit in some of the levels is extremely tight, especially in the beginning of the game where you're trying to learn the game. It like gives you like 20 or 30 seconds to move a whole bunch of characters. You basically have to move a cursor over the character you want to move in order to move him. And sometimes you really have to frantically move around in order to get a character where you want them to go and then go select the next character. But then there's some levels where you can pick up a time power up and then you're given a lot more time to finish the level than you actually need. So there's a little bit of an inconsistency there. If they would have lightened up on the time restrictions on a lot of these levels, I could have given this game a 5. But I think having a really tight time limit really restricts you in playing this game. And this being the Evercade, at least you could save state before every level, so you're not going to have to continue or just game over and start from the beginning. So that's a good thing there. But yeah, I absolutely got to give this a 4. It still is a good game. And that's going to wrap it up for all the games on Interplay Collection 2. If we look at the scoring for all 6 games, we can see it didn't do too bad at all. I thought 2 of them were great games, 2 of them were good games, and 2 of them were okay games. You know, games right in the middle. Nothing really I felt was poor or bad. And if we were to average these scores all together, we're going to get a solid 4, which is exactly the same score I actually gave Interplay Collection 1. Although in that collection, I only thought 1 game was great, and then 4 games were good, and 1 game was okay. So this is pretty much on par with Collection 1, although I would rank this one a little bit higher than Interplay Collection 1, just because it has 2 great games instead of just 1 great game. But again, the scores average out. I mean, your mileage may vary. So yeah, let's wrap it up. That was Interplay Collection 2. The next game cart is going to be the Mega Cats Studios Collection 1. It's a really long title, and I think there's 11 games on that, and I haven't played any one of them, so I better get started playing those. So until next time, see you then. Bye.